Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here with me. I'm Tyler Ellison, and I'm joined by my amazing friend, Erin Elliot. Hello, Erin.
Hi. Hi, Tyler. I'm excited to be here.
Great. I'm excited to have you here. It's really fun. I know we've done at least 2 interviews. We've done more than that. We've done at least 3 interviews together, probably more. So I'm so psyched we get to do another one as we both continue to evolve and dive deeper into these mystical worlds.
Yeah, definitely. Me too.
Cool. So everybody, Erin helped me to compose a list of questions that were drawn from the Ryok community. So we have all of those questions here right now. Erin has them queued up, and I'm going to go into the trance state and bring Ryok through, and she's going to ask Ryok each of the questions that have been presented through all the submissions. We're not going to have time for all of them. That's unlikely, but we're going to do our best to get through as many as we can and to also really provide as deep of answers as we can possibly provide to these questions. So I think you'll enjoy it. I know I will. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get into the state, and I'll bring Ryok through, and I'll see you all at the end. It is our species' highest joy and passion to be able to have this exciting co-creative interaction with you this day. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
We are delighted to be able to interact with you in this manner. And if you wish, we can begin with the questions provided.
All right. The first question is, I keep hearing people talking about darkness being something bad and light being something good, and that there is a war between light and dark. I don't see it that way at all. And from my perspective, this idea sounds like a spiritual racism generated by the lack of people's understanding. Could you please share your perspective on the role of the darkness in the universal design and specifically on Earth? And what is it practically good for? Thank you.
Yes, it is responsible for novelty. And we'll break this down a little bit more. If everything were completely illuminated unconditionally, you would see everything at once. Therefore, there would be no novelty at all within your experience of existence. Because there is darkness, there are dimensions of the existence that are unknown to you. And your consciousness in this metaphor represents light. Think of a flashlight going into a dark room or into a forest at night. You shine the flashlight into the darkness to reveal things that were unknown to you. So darkness is responsible in many ways for novelty. And of course, it's not one-sided, because without light, there would not be anything to discover in the darkness. So dark and light work together in that way to create the experience of novelty, to create the experience of self-discovery, self-exploration. And ultimately, darkness, as you know, in terms of polarity, represents the womb. Think of the seed planted deep in the darkness of the earth. It is here in darkness. It is here in stillness. It is here in silence. That patterns, programs that manifest as creations, life forms, reality complexes are generated. There is what you call the one. And this level of existence in many ways represents a type of womb space that all that is, linearly speaking, emanates from. Although from that point of view, it's not very linear at all, but to all of you, a sense of linearity may help make that concept more understandable or more relatable. But the one, in that sense, is a womb, which all that is born from. So that space as well, that womb space, which you translate as darkness, is not pure non-existence. It may appear that way, but when you spend enough time in the darkness, you realize it's full of life and light. And many of you whom are deep meditators know this. When you close your eyes and you get very quiet, suddenly you may feel surges of energy. You may start to hear frequencies. You may start to see colors. And that is because light and life are a part of darkness, and in a sense exist within darkness, and in a sense emerge from darkness as the manifest experience that you create for yourselves in your physical reality. And it's the same paradigm on all levels of reality. All things are born from the womb. Therefore, all things are born from darkness. But as we have said, inside the darkness, there is life and light. Therefore, it's not a pure darkness in that way, even though it may be experienced as such. Think of the yin-yang symbol. Within the yang, there is a seed of yin. Within the yin, there is a seed of yang. So that is a way you can understand and relate to darkness. The only time dark and light are at war with one another is when a human being or another species whom has evolved to a similar capability chooses to glorify either light or darkness, and then chooses to condemn either light or darkness. And through one's own glorification of one side and judgment of the other, a war between the two is created within one's own consciousness. And because you all create your reality, that is then projected around you. And that is why many people will, in a sense, experience the light and the dark battling not only in the physical reality, but also in astral realities. But that war only goes on because the human being or human beings observing it have bought into the same energetic relationship within themselves. But that's not a natural relationship. It's not really how those forces operate. They are truly lovers coupling together. They're not enemies fighting. So there's a lot to unpack here, and we thank you for receiving this.
Thank you. Okay, if angels and demons are the first step down from all that is, does that mean they both have very high frequencies?
Yes, yes, precisely. Yes.
So demons who are very, very negative have a very high frequency? They
can, yes. It depends on the gradation of their consciousness. Yes. Now, at a certain point, there are some levels of reality that they cannot access because even though they can be high frequency, there's sort of a cap that exists where in order to go even higher to what you would consider to be more of an angelic realm, they would have to let go of the fixation of focus that they have created that links them to the themes that many of you classify as demonic themes. We will talk about it like this. Even though you classify fear or anxiety as low frequency, when you feel fear or anxiety, for many of you, it feels high frequency. And that's because, in a sense, it is high frequency, but it's not as high frequency of what you would call positive emotions. It's not as high frequency of what you would call blissful emotions or blissful states. Those are even higher. And that's why when you exist in a state of fear or anxiety, there's a sort of cap. You can still be aware of love. You can still be aware of positivity, but to truly merge with it, you have to let go of the fixation upon the negativity in order to access that realm. It's the exact same for demons. Now, angels and demons are not bound to a particular frequency. They can manipulate or shift their frequencies. That's why some individuals will have what appears to be physical interactions with demons or physical interactions with angels, because at will, they can condense their energy bodies, their forms, to appear solid, to appear physical. So they can also lower their frequency. So high frequency beings, such as yourselves, can lower their frequencies to have a physicalized experience. So you are all very high frequency. That's why we say you are the microcosm, because your consciousness exists on every level of the macrocosm. You are infinite beings, very high frequency, yet you have on a superficial level lowered your frequency to have the physicalized experience. So angels and demons are the same in that way. Does that answer the question?
Yes. Yes.
All right. And
Okay.
also, we'll say one last thing. Different angels, different demons, which exist, you could say, in different classes of organization, also have different frequencies. So it's not as if there's only one type of angel and one type of demon.
Mm-hmm.
There are many variations of these beings, and different ones occupy different levels. Different ones occupy different realms. And the realms are, in a sense, separated by different vibrational frequency thresholds. So that means certain beings cannot enter certain realms unless they embody the qualities of that realm. So that means if a demon were to truly desire evolution into a whole other level of experience, they would have to let go of the qualities that make them into a demon. They would have to evolve themselves, which happens, we might add. That does occur. It's not fixed. Things change, things shift. It just plays out on a different time scale than what you're used to in the physical reality.
Okay. I have been seeing some fear-based ideas coming to the surface about hybrids lately. People becoming suspicious of your intentions and ideas that you actually aren't as positive as you say, or maybe that you have been programmed to not be aware of certain ways you are being controlled. Any comment on this?
Well, the idea is you access different versions of our species based off of what you are uncovering within yourselves. So many of you, when you are getting in touch with more fear-based things within yourselves, will see that reflected back to you when you interact with us, because we're partially human. We share your genetics. So when you discover things about yourself that perhaps creates fear or anxiety, and you then interact with us because we operate as a very high frequency mirror, sometimes our energy can intensify the quality of that reflection, and that amplification can make it seem very convincing that perhaps we are not what we say we are, in a way that is reminiscent of the qualities you would call deceit or deception. But we assure you that is not the case. We remind you, what comes through the channels that you interact with are, in a sense, impressions. So I am not purely Sasani in relationship to the persona speaking through this channel. The persona speaking through this channel is a blending of my species frequency and the channel's own frequency. So what comes through is an impression of my civilization, an impression of my species. If it were a pure experience of my species, no channel would be required. You would be physically interacting with us. So, because that's not the case, a translation device is needed. The translation device that you call the channel creates an impression of what we are, and you are, in that sense, and this is without exception, interacting with impressions whenever you're interacting with a channeled persona. So, there will be things the channel is unaware of. There will be things the channel does not have a vocabulary to express in relationship to certain dimensions of our experience, in terms of certain dimensions of our world. So it can seem as if at times things are left out. Mistranslations and things of a similar ilk can occur. But the idea is, as the channel grows and as your species grows, the impression becomes more and more and more transparent, more and more clear. So information of a greater level of clarity can then be brought through. And that is why channeling, in many ways, is a preparing exercise, getting you all ready for open contact. Because when the impression becomes purified enough, there will be little difference in terms of informational quality between what the impression is revealing to all of you and what we would say to you directly as ourselves. And when you're at that point, that is when you will start to experience greater levels of open contact. because in order for the impression to get that clear, you must be completely resonant with our world. The channel must be completely resonant with our world. And that will open up a type of portal within your collective consciousness, allowing for contact experiences of many varieties to then become available to you all.
Okay, thank you.
You're very
Is
welcome.
there, do you have any tips on addressing the fears in the community and the suspicions that some people have about hybrids and extraterrestrials coming to Earth?
Get to know them. Get to know them. Don't just rely on channelers. Train yourselves. Astral voyage into hybrid craft. See for yourself. Get to know these beings. If you are just relying on ego intellect and you are just relying on absorbing spoken information, you will remain limited and you will not really understand the true natures of these beings that are being channeled. You will be limited to what you can perceive with your more superficial senses. So if you wish to really know the nature of hybrids, allow for yourself to invoke that experience. When you do that, it's important you experience it from a level that is higher in frequency than the ego intellect, because the ego intellect can really only go off of logic and can really go off of your experiences of the past. So that means if you attempt to read into the nature of hybrids from the ego intellect level, it will automatically be biased. It will automatically be colored by your past and your projections of the past. So what is required is that you train yourselves to go into a meditative state of mind, to raise your frequency so you can be more receptive without a bias. And once you are at that state, you can do things like astral projection, and you can project yourself into one of the craft. You can interact with some of the beings there. You can ask them themselves. You can ask them yourself about what it is they are about, what it is they are exploring. Get to know them personally. You have that power. In addition to this, you can also remote view them. You can also tune in through your psychic senses, such as clairvoyance, which would also include remote viewing, or clairaudience, and you can tune in and listen into them. These are all things you can train yourselves in. So if you are, in a sense, feeling like you need a little bit more to go off of than what you are being told through channeling or the community, do it yourself. And that's an invitation. We're saying that because that's also a preparing action, getting you all ready for open contact, because the more you engage in those types of things, the easier of an experience you will then have matching our frequencies.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, I apply what you like, the tools that you give us, and what other beings give us, and for me they work, and so that's why I feel very sure, that I resonate with the hybrid energy.
Yeah. And there's much more, as we have said, to this than is being revealed.
Mm-hmm.
We're being very transparent about that. There is so much to this world that has not been spoken through any channel. And that's why we're inviting you to dive in yourselves. So more of that world can then be brought forth. So whenever you're interacting with channeled information, it's just like reading a sacred text. If you interpret it literally, there may be certain literal things that are of value to you, but there will be a great deal of information that you miss. See what we say as symbolism. See what we say as living symbolism. Just as you would interpret a dream that you have had the night before, when you wake up in the morning, interpret what we say as a dream symbol, and you will find entire new dimensions of clarity and information are instantly revealed to you. So have fun with that.
All right, that sounds fun. Okay, what is a definition or awareness that will help to shift our awareness to feel subconsciously safe and secure deep within, no matter where we go in the world?
All right. In general, one of the things you can play with is deep grounding, deep rooting. Many of you, when you feel fear or when you feel danger, when you feel anxious, there is a sort of high frequency sensation that you pick up on, and it can feel like you're no longer tethered to the ground. It can almost feel like you're vibrating off of the earth, but not in a really fun way. So when you ground yourself, which will actually lower the frequency, it forms a link between your energy body and the earth. So those negative or uncomfortable emotional energies can then be detoxified out of your system through the earth. When that connection's not there, when you're disassociated from the earth, those energies build up in your body. And that's why individuals have the experience of their fears following them around no matter where on earth they travel to. It's because the fears are not connected to a particular person. They're not connected to a particular experience. Fundamentally, they are connected to the person's energy body. They have formed energetic geometries of emotionality within the system that build up over time. And that's why you have the understanding that excess and negative emotions that are not detoxified can create disease, because those patterns will, in a sense, cause the biogeometric patterns of the body to fall into resonance with them. And that's how negative emotion over time can create disease or sickness, because the body becomes more like the negative emotion rather than becoming or aligning with its natural blueprint, its natural design, which the earth contains within it. Within the earth, there is a blueprint level that represents the natural organizational matrix of your very body. So when you have a deep link to the earth, you can, through the breath, through visualization, give the negative emotions to the earth, emptying yourself of them. And when you have emptied yourself sufficiently, you can bring golden light up from the earth, filling your body. And this golden light corresponds with the qualities that you would call success. It also corresponds with what you would call abundance, prosperity, resources. In other words, having everything you need. And when you have everything you need, many of you then are able to feel safe. As you know, a person whom is in fight or flight, or whom is always experiencing fear, is having, let's just say in general, survival issues. Generally speaking, it has to do with some type of resource or need not being met. But all needs in that sense that are of a physical ilk come from your earth. So the things that, in a sense, complement the needs and satisfy them also come from your earth. So when you charge yourself with the golden energies of earth, you will begin over time to feel safe, and you will also provide for yourself resources, experiences, opportunities that amplify and reflect back to you that same thing.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
How can I maintain a new belief that I choose to express without going back to the old belief?
It has to do with reinforcement. So think of it like this. At any point in time, you will always have the freedom to choose positive or negative. Because you have the experience of linearity, you oftentimes will have the experience of momentum. Many of you, because on different levels, you have explored negativity deeply. There is a certain level of negative momentum that you create within your linear experience. Because many of you within this lifetime are now just beginning to tune into the positive frequency, the positive frequency also has a certain type of momentum that may at first seem weaker, especially if you're new to this world. The key is to continue to nourish the positive momentum by nourishing the positive energy states that you prefer within yourself. And the idea is to, in a sense, starve the negative momentums by not feeding them your energy, your life force. That does not mean ignore negativity. That does not mean suppress negativity. That does not mean deny negativity, because those are negative actions. It will feed into the negative momentum and you will feel stuck. You will feel stagnant. You will feel like you're in some kind of cycle. Instead, use your positive momentum to apply an attitude of compassion and peace towards the negative momentums, towards the negative energies. And as soon as you have begun to do that, the negative energy is no longer negative. Now it is an object of your love. Now it is an object of your affection. Now it is an object of your compassion. So you've included it within yourself. Therefore, it now feeds into the positive momentum, and it becomes easier to then feed into the positive direction. The idea is not to glorify the positive and also not to vilify the negative. For that will also create imbalance, because that comes in many ways from a place of bias, and in a sense, it comes from a place of hierarchy. Now, not all hierarchies are negative, but in general, when you create hierarchies within yourself, this part's the most important, but this part is not important, you create an imbalance. So train yourselves to see positive and negative simply as daytime and nighttime. Just see them as neutral things. One's not better or worse. Sure, one might feel painful, but that's by design. Because if you were eternally comfortable, why would you ever change? Why would you ever grow? There'd be no reason to. So the discomfort you feel from negativity is the fuel for your evolution. If that were not there, you would have no reason to be in the physical reality. You'd have no reason to evolve yourselves because everything would feel great all the time. We're done. If that were the case, why come into the physical reality at all? You're here to grow. You're here to evolve, and negativity is designed to assist you in that. It acts as a catalyst for change, and the change starts within. And as you know, you cannot solve a problem from the same level that the problem exists upon. This applies here in the following way. You cannot transcend negativity with negative actions. The only way that can be transcended is by including the negativity, embracing it with an attitude of peace, compassion, love, bliss, whatever you prefer. And it will teach you. It will be a guide. It will teach you how to reinforce the positive momentums, how to reinforce the new directions. And that is the type of reinforcing that we are referring to. That will assist you in really reinforcing whatever positive beliefs or definitions you are cultivating within yourself. Remember, just affirming a new belief system, while it is important, works only on the mental level. You exist on many levels. You have an astral level you're connected to. You have an etheric level you are connected to. You have a physical level you are connected to. Therefore, take that positive belief system and make sure you're anchoring it every day on each of those levels. Because if you're just affirming it in your mind, it will not be very powerful. And that is why many individuals struggle with using affirmations to create their reality in a positive way. And it has to do with them really only working on one level of their consciousness. You are multidimensional, so work on the many dimensions that you exist on. And if you do not know how to do that, which is fine, that's an invitation to develop yourself so you can learn how to. You're being invited to grow. So enjoy.
Okay, thanks. You said that our negative states are kind of impetus for us to grow and transform.
Yes.
But what about with you? Like, you don't experience negative states. How do you evolve?
We evolve through the idea of challenge. We evolve through the idea of discovery. We evolve through the ideas of novelty. And on higher dimensional levels, those things, challenge, novelty, discovery, can be experienced without requiring a negative catalyst. And as you know, as above, so below. So the same thing's available to all of you. You can also grow through those means without having to, in a sense, have negativity be a part of the experience. But as you know, right now, negativity is a very highlighted experience. Many of you are personally working through and are collectively working through. Therefore, in terms of the Earth experience, it's very relevant and in that sense, very useful because it's a primary theme of exploration here. But at a certain point, it will not have to be that way because the negative momentums will be transformed, which you're all doing now through revolution. There's only so much negativity. It's not infinite in that way. There's only so much to transform. And once you have transformed in that manner, you will then be able to explore in all types of different ways that are parallel to how we explore. Because again, without darkness, there would be nothing to discover. Without darkness, which includes the unknown, there would not really be any challenge. Without darkness, there would not be any there would not be any novelty. So we use darkness in that way to grow and evolve ourselves, but we do not require negativity to do that. And as you know, the only reason you experience negativity at all is because many of you, in that sense, and we are referring to your species here as well, have shoved components of who you are into dark corners, and you have forgotten about them. And as you know, those types of patterns can get passed on and do get passed on. That's why you have the experience of generational healing. But once you have transformed that, there will be other ways for you to explore as a species. And you can still explore that way now. It's not that you only have to learn through the negative. You can, of course, learn through the positive. It's just that negativity is, for many of you, a prominent teacher because it's a prominent theme. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I've been, whenever something that I might define as negative happens, just because of what I've learned through, your teachings and Bashar's teachings, right away, I know that there's a positive reason for it, in a sense. So that, in a sense, helps to transform it.
Precisely, yes.
Yeah.
That's you validating it and seeing that it has some type of utility. And in that moment, you're being compassionate towards yourself and you're including it. So that's very useful.
Okay, I have another topic here.
All right.
Have any of the psychedelic substances on our planet been created by or directly influenced by ETs?
Yes, many of them. Many of them.
Hmm.
Now, when you say ETs, it does not always mean little green men made a psychedelic cactus on Mars and then brought it to Earth as a gift. But understand that many of the chemical constituents that are a part of these things are infused with energetics that come from a multitude of different levels of reality. Many of them are extra dimensional in nature and are extraterrestrial in nature. So in that sense, yes, there are modifications that are made on an energetic and chemical level that are connected to other species, to other realms, to other locations within the cosmos. Some substances have been brought here during the Earth's densification process. The Earth, as all forms, originally began as a light matrix that densified and densified and densified and densified and densified and densified and densified until it became solid. So the idea is that originally the Earth was nothing but light, light that got denser and denser and denser, just as all of you. So in that process of the densification of light, light frequencies, light codes from other realities, from other beings, from other realms are, in a sense, inserted into the light body of the Earth as it densifies itself and densifies itself and densifies itself. And that then engenders certain species of the Earth whom will carry some of those codes, whom will carry some of those programs. And the psychedelic plants, in particular the psychedelic mushrooms, are a direct result of this.
Yeah, speaking of psychedelic mushrooms, they've been found to rewire the neurons and connections in our brains. Yeah. I'd love to hear how this correlates to the shifting of realities.
Well, the idea is it is a more bottom-up way of shifting one's vibrational state so they can become more positive, which in turn will alter the individual's frequency, thus allowing for them to more easily shift in a preferential direction. So the way it's doing that is twofold. On one level, it's energetic. It has to do with the energy field of the mushroom, in a sense, in training, the energetic field of the person consuming the mushroom. And that's what allows for a degree of neuroplasticity to then be experienced within the consumer of the mushroom. In addition to this, the psilocybin compound within the psychedelic mushroom also chemically activates the neuroplasticity qualities within the brain, allowing for new neural pathways to develop. Now, the more open an individual is, the stronger the effect will be. In a sense, the denser the ego is of the person who consumes the mushroom, the lesser the neuroplastic effect will be. So it's not that the mushroom does it for you, it assists you in doing it yourself. What's required is that you be open to that experience. And through being open to that experience and through allowing new neural pathways to develop, you allow for entirely new and novel dimensions of your own consciousness to awaken within you, which will dramatically alter your vibrational state, which alters the quality of how you are shifting through the series of parallel realities.
Do you have a suggestion about how we could use that permission slip to be able to make more noticeable shifts?
Well, you have the idea that set and setting are incredibly important when going on psychedelic journeys. That's something to keep in mind here. Making sure you have some type of guide whom can lead you in a very powerful way through the journey. This will also be of great service. Ensuring that you utilize the compound when you are in a place where you feel you are ready to make some kind of shift, where you feel you are ready to make some kind of change. These are things to keep in mind. Now, none of this is official medical advice. We're not telling anyone to take these things. We're not telling anyone that this is the only way you can shift. We're just letting you know, be responsible. And if you choose to use those types of teachers, make sure you take the necessary precautions. So not only can you be safe, but also so you can really expand and shift yourself in powerful ways that will ultimately be of service to you and can improve the quality of your experience.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there any sort of physical human gathering you'd suggest for us to expand the probability of open contact?
All right. We will mention one gathering that has occurred on your earth for some time. It is a place where contact has occurred. And that gathering is called Burning Man in the desert.
Mm.
Contact has occurred there. Physical contact has occurred there. So that's an example. It's not the only place. There are many gatherings that are based in positivity, love, celebration, exploration that draw extraterrestrial beings and extra dimensional beings to them. They're drawn because of the vibratory states of the individuals whom attend. Not everyone whom attends is able to have the contact experience, but when individuals are in the appropriate vibrational state, they can have the contact experience, and many of them do. So there's a lot to unpack there, but yes, the idea is gatherings that are based in love, that are based in virtue, that are based in positivity, that are high frequency in nature, will draw many types of extraterrestrial and extra dimensional beings to those gatherings. So form your own, have fun, have a party. We all enjoy a good party. That's why we're here assisting you all on Earth, because even though many of you experience your Earth as a place of conflict, we experience your Earth as a celebration of life itself. So to us, this is one big party.
Okay. Speaking of Earth, what's happening on other parallel versions of Earth that you are communicating with now?
Well, there's all types of things. We're happy to share some of them. If you do not mind, is there a specific question you have about this?
Yeah, I do. Like, could you share one about, like some a parallel version of Earth that maybe is just slightly higher in vibration than ours? And what's the difference between their reality and ours?
New technologies have been formed that are restoring environmental balance. Different alterations have been made to what you would call your energetic grid network that have allowed for human consciousness to really expand and grow in some powerful ways. One of the differences we are detecting on this version of Earth is that many individuals there have willingly chosen to let go of the things that they know are negative, that are creating the experience of being held back. That's one of the things we're noticing as a difference in terms of the choices the collective on that Earth is making. So this comes down to what you would call negative attachment. Many of you create the experience of attachment to things that you know are negative. This might have to do with different ways, perhaps you see the world using more negative points of view. This might have to do with certain choices or lifestyle actions that you take that are more negative. So it's important to be thorough and honest with yourself so you can understand if you have formed an attachment to something that is holding you back. The more that you let go of those things, the more space there is that is then available for positive synchronicities and innovations of all types of different quality to then be available to you and your collective. And this is one of the differences we're able to observe on this alternate Earth that we are in contact with, that we have mentioned here.
Okay, I have a question about, like, when we're making choices about our food and maybe things that we use in our life, and if we don't worry about like how they were created or what kind of, you know, pollutants that might be in them, but if we just living in the moment and enjoying them for what they are, is that since we have a positive state of being with those things, does that mean that we're still in a positive state? Or
yes, it does. It does mean you're in a positive state, but we remind you there are multiple levels to your consciousness, and there are multiple levels to the consciousness of whatever the food is that you're consuming. So the positive state, generally speaking, works on the emotional level. It also trickles down to the physical level through altering your hormones and neurotransmitters. When you combine the positive state with visualization, you then expand the positive state to the astral level. When you bring breath into that, you anchor it into the etheric level. And when you bring the source connection into that, you expand it onto the spirit level. Those are the major levels: spirit, mental, astral. With astral, emotional is in there as well. Etheric, physical. Think of these as the 5 major levels. When you expand the positive state on all of those levels, it becomes a complete shift, not just for yourself, but also for the actual nature of the substance you're consuming, the food you're consuming. You're changing the underlying template that organizes its physicality. So yes, being in a positive state will allow for you to derive positive effects from eating foods, perhaps foods that are contaminated with certain toxins. When you expand that positive state onto all levels that you exist on, then there's a complete shift that is made and everything about the substance changes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but would that mean that we would choose a different substance, or would that substance?
It might. It might. You may find that you stick with that substance for some time and work with it in that way. And the substance in that sense can then assist you in evolving to a particular point. And you may notice that the substance now is actually becoming a limitation and that there is something higher being given to you. And that may then be the catalyst to let go of that food or substance and to then perhaps adopt a new choice, a new behavior, perhaps another type of food or perhaps another type of substance. So it all depends on what is relevant for the individual's theme. But yes, at a certain point, if that food is charged in that way sufficiently enough, eventually it will fall away if it is no longer relevant.
Okay. All right, the next question is, what role or involvement do companies like that collect genetic material like Ancestry.com have in the hybridization program?
Not as much as you would think. Those companies do have, and we're not naming any of them, we're just talking generally here. Some of these companies do have projects that are going on that involve certain genetic materials. However, this is not connected directly to the hybridization program. That phenomenon is more terrestrial in nature. And not all genetic companies do that. There are many that really insulate and seal the genetic information that individuals give to the company. But not all companies are the same. So again, be discerning with the ones that you work with.
Well, what are they doing with?
We are not able to say that at this time, but we are saying now it's not connected to the hybridization program. It has to do with the idea of different novel expansions into the field of medicine. It also has to do with the idea of predictive modeling to understand genetically a person's quality of health, but also what is likely to be the quality of health for their descendants. So different projects like this are connected to it. We can't say much more than that at this time, though. It's not very relevant. Even though it might seem that way, you're moving in a very different direction as a species. So it's not as relevant as it may appear.
Okay. What's the best way to connect with the Pleiadians?
All right. Because the question was asked in this manner, we're going to respond in the following way. The best way is your way. It's as simple as that. The best way is your way. Now, what is your way? You may not know that. Well, this is a very exciting point then, because now you get to learn. Now you get to expand. Now you get to grow, and you can learn different ways of connecting to non-physical beings. You can learn new ways of connecting to extra-dimensional or extraterrestrial beings. There's all types of different models. There's all types of different systems. There's all types of different techniques. Train yourself. Invest energy, invest time in this. Learn, develop, grow in as many ways as you feel you are capable of, and develop your way, blending different techniques, blending different modalities, blending different ideas. Your way will serve you. So if you don't know what your way is, develop it. And the more energy you put into that process, the stronger the connection will be. What you put out is what you get back. So if you only put in a little bit of energy into that world, into that connection, you will only get a little bit of a result. If you put a great deal of energy into that connection, you will get a great result. So that is the best way.
What is happening to the Earth when the equipment we use to measure the Schumann resonance shows blackout periods in the readings? Does this have an impact on us in any way?
You recall what we mentioned about the idea of the womb representing darkness, stillness, silence?
Yes.
When your Earth's going through a blackout period, you're being invited to join it. Go within, dissolve in that sense into your inner reality. The Earth will teach you things that it does not normally teach when the Schumann resonance is more active. But when the Schumann resonance blacks out, that's when there's a sort of still point being created within the vibrational field. If you create a similar still point within yourself, you can join the Earth. You can go into resonance with the Earth on that level, and new programs, new ideas, new insights, new dimensions of yourself will be revealed. And that will then blossom into new realities in your life.
What is the relationship between the soul, star chakra, and black holes, if any?
The idea is every black hole is connected to what you would call a white hole. Think of it like this. And this is not literal, but it is workable. The black hole is taking energy in. The white hole is sending energy out. So, in order to truly access the soul star chakra, in a very embodied way, what is required is that one linearly awakens each of the lower chakras, going up and up and up and up. And at a certain point, the individual will be at the crown. To get to the soul star chakra, the individual, in a sense, has to cross an abyss. There is a gap, there is space, there is void. That, in a sense, represents here the black hole. Because the chakra is made of light, that is the white hole. So when you send your awareness through that abyss, through that void, into the chakra, you pass through the idea of that womb space, which does two major things. The first thing it does is it dissolves. It breaks down what no longer serves you. It, in a sense, washes those things away. It also allows for, again, a type of birthing process to take place. So once you have transitioned through that space into the soul star chakra, the soul star chakra represents the new reality where the new programs have already taken effect. It allows for you, in that sense, to begin to merge with the higher self in a very literal way. So there are all types of methods for how you can do this. It is a delicate type of process. We will explain it like that. There's a reason in many trainings that is saved for last, because the more attached one is to the negative dimensions of ego, and some of those attachments are conscious, some are also unconscious, the more challenging it will be to smoothly cross that space into the chakra. So the reason that's saved for last is because if everything has been done gradually, by the time the individual has made it to the crown, they will be, for the most part, very clear of those attachments. And it will be easier for them to then expand into that new level.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I would love to know if Elon Musk is tapping into his future counterpart, or linearly speaking, during the time that Mars was colonized before Earth. As I understand, there are still things that we as a collective need to understand before we can explore and colonize other planets. Could you expand on this idea, please?
Yes. We're going to put this very bluntly. Before you expand to other planets in the way that your science fiction movies illustrate, it's very important that you resolve many of the things that you're dealing with on Earth. Otherwise, those things will follow you into the cosmos. The nature of the cosmos is to amplify whatever is projected into it. So, before you expand into the stars, ensure that you have expanded your species' heart field to create a collective Christ consciousness network where you are all heart-centric. And that will allow for you all to smoothly expand off-world, which is where you're all headed, we might add. So that is a prerequisite we are really emphasizing here. So you do not create the same challenges on Earth, on other worlds, which will only multiply the challenges, because other worlds have a very different energetic polarity than what you have on Earth. Earth, while it is mainly feminine, is neutral in nature. Other planets like Mars are more masculine, more connected to the quality of fire. So if some challenges make it there, that can create some interesting effects. So it may be more desirable to play and develop and evolve through these challenges on Earth. So that way you can be prepared to expand onto other worlds and into the stars. In relationship to the individual you call Elon Musk, just like all of you, yes, this individual is tuning into counterparts. Some of them are in the future, linearly speaking, some of them are in the past. Some of them are a part of civilizations that have not been known. Some of them are a part of civilizations that have very deeply blended themselves with technology, physically. So be aware of that. Anyway, we are now at the time mark for this transmission. We thank you so much for everything you have shared with us this day. We thank you for all of your questions. And we thank you, dear one, for presenting the questions to us in this manner.
Thank you, Ryok.
Yes, you are very welcome. Our species, unconditional love and appreciation to you and all members of your human family. Okay.
All
Great.
right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I hope that was a lot of fun for you. And yeah.
Yeah, it was really a lot of fun.
Okay, great.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And everyone who tuned in, I thank you all for being here. Thank you for the wonderful questions. And with that being said, I think we'll stop this recording now, but we'll speak to you all again soon.
Mhm.